Raindrops, we're back. Reality Crime Stories, episode 2. I am reunited with co-host Courtney Parker as we do a part 2. Thanks to you all, of course, for the insurmountable love and praise you guys gave us our first episode. Courtney, it's been good, right?
It was. Listen, I am a novice in the space of in front of the camera. All of my expertise is behind. So my first time out, I literally read every probably raindrop comment. And I know you probably shouldn't, but I did, and I engaged, and I absolutely loved it. Thank you, Raindrops, for being gracious. We're gonna get our dance and our banter together, but we were just thrilled to know that you guys were thinking like we were thinking, in respect to this particular crime story, and just appreciating our take on it. So Carlos had the amazing idea of, let's keep this conversation going and striking while the iron is hot. So, hey.
No, we have to do it because since our first episode, so many developments have happened. Yeah. Porsha and Simon were in court together virtually, okay? That happened. So many developments occurred as well. So, Courtney, let's just get right into it. We have so much to talk about. So, look, first thing first, Courtney, take us down the path of Porsha revealing that she paid Simon's child support and property maintenance during his ICE detention, despite actively divorcing him. So before I have Courtney take it away with this newfound fact, some of you did ask like, okay, Carlos, this show's called Reality Crime Stories. This is a divorce. A divorce is not a crime. You're right. It's a crime story because of all of the things that Simon was found guilty of. The fact that he was detained, the fact that he was shipped back off to Nigeria. These are all things that are considered criminal in the sense of what the legal aspect of his case has been. So that's why we're talking about it. But the perfect thing about this is we also get to talk about the different developments that occurred. And the first thing, Courtney Parker, is the fact that, like I said, Porsha paid Simon's child support and property maintenance during his ICE detention. So, what is that about?
Listen, this is my opinion. From the beginning of this entire case, I always felt like the timing of it was very specific. And I believe it is strategic with respect to this ongoing divorce. Porsha came out of this preliminary divorce hearing very victorious. And I think some of that is attributed to her steps, her very surgical and strategic steps, including, but not limited to, paying his child support. She alleges that she did it out of the kindness of her heart and the goodness of her heart, which I thoroughly believe is true. I'm not saying that Porsha, by any stretch of the imagination, is a bad person. I believe she has proven and shown to be honorable. But I do think that paying the child support for kids, they weren't married a very long time. So paying child support for your stepkids, I believe was just a strategic move. Now, people can disagree, but I believe it was all part of the strategy to get ultimately what she wanted and what she wants in this pending divorce.
One of the things that she did get what she wanted was Porsha was awarded $40,000 a month in alimony for 15 months. She would have her legal fees paid for, but it doesn't end there, Courtney. Porsha also gets to keep the Rolls Royce that Simon gifted her. and has until 2027 to decide whether she wants to keep living in the $7 million premarital home they shared during their marriage.
Now, that was an extreme victory because, again, when people alleged and wondered and questioned whether she or someone on her team called ICE, we got to take it back to your original timeline. If I know you're going to bring it up, but February 19th, he is arrested and detained by ICE. February 26th was when they were supposed to go to court originally. It was postponed until now, but you just have to think about all of the occurrences and all of the timing, strategic timing. He's now deported in Nigeria, making his pleas, building his case over there, and you'll get into his recent interview. But just think about it. Part of the ongoing issue was her inability to film in their marital property home. And now, not only was she awarded alimony, but she's awarded the Rolls Royce. She's able to live and have all the rights to film, record, do whatever she wants to do in their marital home until 2027. Again, it's just, listen, I'm going to love to read the comments from your raindrops on the timing, the alignment, because I'm siding with so many of them on, hey, the timing of all of this, his crime, his detainment, and then ultimately deportation is just too perfect in alignment with their divorce.
When you talk about the timeline of that, are you suggesting that when it comes to everything working Porsha's favor, that some of the things that Simon is accusing Porsha of, which he did say this in court, Courtney. So he did do an interview with Us Weekly. And in this interview, Simon does believe that somebody did pick up the phone and call ICE. He's alleging that it was somebody on his ex-wife's team who did that based upon just his own intuition. We had Steve Sizu on last week, who's joining us again, Raindrops, today to break it down for us too. The fact that he believes that somebody tipped off ICE about his whereabouts. He talked about how he said it took days before ICE gave him a way to contact his family. According to Us Weekly, Courtney, the outlet noted that he got emotional when talking about this situation. Simon said he had to spend 23 hours a day locked up inside his cell. Yep. He said, and I quote, he understands why people would do stuff to themselves. I don't want to say anything that he said because we could get struck by this channel. But read the article if you guys want to. But he talks about people doing things to themselves, but he's too strong for that. He said, but I understand why people, when you are put in a certain mental headspace, you start to understand why people do what they do. Mm-hmm. So Simon believes that somebody did tip off ICE. But what is so fascinating is this, though.
Yep.
Simon is not a wallflower. Simon was on social media on a daily basis, taking pictures with former housewives, current housewives, Peter Thomas Child, and calling out Bravo, calling out the show, calling out Porsha. So it wasn't like Simon was, hiding from the world the way Drake's baby was years ago. Do you know what I mean? Like, Simon, Simon was definitely somebody that was out there.
Right. But again, if we take it out of if we lean into what you're saying, Carlos, Simon has been Simoning for so long. He wasn't hiding in plain sight. He wasn't hiding. So out of all the times a week before you're supposed to go into court to talk about the preliminaries for your divorce, all of a sudden, from the years that he has been here, allegedly unbeknownst to her, we did quick research to find out his checkered past. So a week before their proceedings, their divorce proceedings, he gets detained. I'm kind of siding with Simon on this. It just feels very suspicious. It feels very suspicious. And once we bring back in Steve, he can speak to it from a legal perspective on strategy.
Yes, I want to bring in Steve. So before I bring in Steve, I do want to say this. After the June 11th hearing, Simon obviously deported to Nigeria. He is back on Instagram, Courtney. Okay. You should
not be non-vocal when the world, including us, are talking about him as he should be safe and secure in Nigeria. He should be letting us know and letting her have it.
So, Courtney, Simon turned 61 years old on June 2nd. So he did celebrate a birthday. He did post on Instagram, Courtney, a picture of him, which appears to be a nice car. I don't know if it's a Rolls Royce. I just see the double R logo on the back seat. But what I did see, well, the headrest. What I did see was his caption. He captioned, "He is back." Speaking in third person, he is back. My heart's still full of love for this life. Actually, even more now. Now, Courtney, you know we like to have fun in the midst of this conversation. Simon, if you ever go on his Wikipedia page, Simon is titled as an executive producer.
Oh. Of what show?
It says that he is a Nigerian entrepreneur, philanthropist, and executive producer. And that he has worked alongside Academy Award winner Spike Lee to executive produce the 2020 film Son of the South.
Okay. If we decide to do a part 3, I can either corroborate or critique those claims. As of right now, I have no knowledge of him being an executive producer or working with
Courtney!
But
I didn't have as much fun with you today, but go ahead.
But I will go straight to some of those sources and find out.
Okay, well, let's go to your main source, who I love. Let's bring on Steve, who had a warm reception from the Raindrops last week as well. So when I bring on Steve, Courtney and I are going to talk about the legal strategy and getting Steve's expert insight from the prenuptial agreement enforcement, the child support pays, ICE detention and tactical leverage, appeal risk and asset leverage, in addition to the reputational and financial ramifications. So again, Raindrops, Simon has 30 days to appeal the court order. But without further ado, let's bring on Steve.
Happy to be back. Thank you, folks.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, so one thing, just to kind of put a little bit more perspective, the timing of his arrest, it was February. It was about a month after the Trump administration took over. I mean, if this were now, right, we've been advising folks ever since Trump took over is if you've got a green card, don't travel out of the country. If you've got any kind of concern about your status, don't travel out of the country. Don't even get on a plane to go from New York to Florida because you might get caught in the net. So it's not inconceivable that him coming back in by that time, they were doing a lot closer checks on folks who are re-entering the country, and it may have just fallen on it. May have just complete coincidence, although I have my doubts about that because it does.
Okay. I'm like, come on, Steve. Now, listen, I know you did divorce law first. However, marital law first. However, their first court hearing was set for February 26th.
Right.
Simon is a loud, a vivacious personality who has not stopped talking, being visible since his appearances on Real Housewives. Now, that would have been crazy storyline while they were married. They had an elaborate wedding. There was a whole season dedicated to it. So it's perfect timing for it to unravel as their marriage is unraveling. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it was a strategic play.
We don't believe in coincidences, basically, right? I mean, that's what the reality is. But to be fair, who knows? Till somebody fesses up to it, or until you know exactly what they asked him about, what they confronted him with when he was re-entering the country, who knows? Uh-oh.
Oh, that's actually a good point in the sense of I wonder what they sort of got him on when he was re-entering the country. That is interesting to know. But Steve, me and Courtney to have so many questions about what occurred during their first virtual court hearing. Courtney has mentioned that despite the divorce filing, Porsha did pay Simon's child expenses and household bills while he was detained. Porsha says she did that out of the kindness of her own heart. From a legality standpoint, one thing that I have discovered, I've never been married and I don't have any plans on doing so, especially based on what has happened with Porsha and Simon Child. But what I do know is when two people get married, you are considered by the law as one unit. Meaning, if your husband, let's say, has children prior to this marriage, and let's say he has defaulted on child support payments, you being his wife, you being his current wife, you could be responsible to pay for your current husband's defaulted child support from a previous relationship. So my question is, Porsha paying for paying for the children, is that because she did that out of the kindness of her own heart, or could she have legally been told to do that, obligated to do that?
I mean, there's no way to know what her true motives were,
right?
Obviously, but legally, your new wife, your new spouse is not obligated to pay legally. That is, morally maybe, but you're not legally obligated to pay for his debts and his expenses. So if she did do it, I tend to agree with Courtney that it was probably a little bit of a scam going on there to make herself look good. Remember, we don't know what the exact amount is. We don't know what he actually paid, but that to me, to use just a little legal phrase, that sounds like bullshit to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It just feels very strategic.
Yeah.
Again, that's the phrase I'll keep going back to. Now, was it bad strategy? Absolutely not. when in this first hearing, she was awarded. It was a good play. As an attorney, Steve, is it something that you would have advised your client to do if you were Porsha's attorneys? How would you have wanted this to play out? Because it feels like it played out exactly strategically how it should have to get what she now just got out of it.
Yeah, look, so I think it's a matter of how it's done. Look, if you all of the publicity was poor pitiful Simon once he got locked up, right? I mean, it started to move in his direction. As much as maybe folks didn't like him all that much, he's locked up, right? So obviously going to be sympathetic. You know, if that comes up, yeah, I want Porsha to make up for his absence, but I don't want her to be the one talking about it, right? Because that's like, we're going to do something good, you know, then it sounds like, aren't I wonderful, right? You don't need that. I'd let it get out there from an unnamed source, you know, a source close to Porsha said that, blah, blah, blah. But the idea that she's coming out and taking, you know, saying, aren't I wonderful for doing this? I didn't have to. That's not how I would have played it.
That's a good point, Carlos. What are your thoughts about that? Because she let it be known she did this. So, which is why I feel strongly about it being strategic. Because, yeah. No. I feel strongly that if when you do something like that, if it was really about just making sure the kids were taken care of in his absence, even through their active divorce, it would have been let some of the mothers of the children say that. Let the mother of the children say that versus her coming out to say, not only am I trying to be amicable in this, but I'm also, here's what I'm doing, to Steve's point. I'm paying the child support. I'm maintaining this. It feels like leverage that she could use later to justify the win and the reward that she just got.
Oh, 100%. Look, based on me covering true crime and talking about the Diddy trial, talking about this particular divorce trial that occurred, what I am learning, and listen, I'm no lawyer, shout out to Steve, but what I have learned is that when it comes to trial, everything is strategic.
Right.
And that's the reason why lawyers tell their clients, say less. Less is more. Let me do the talking and let me guide you on the right things to say. So with that being said, I could not agree more that yes, it does present Porsha the best light to say, look, if this is what you have done, you absolutely should let the judge know. You should let the world know, because what's the point of me representing you if I'm not going to tell you to say certain things that are factual that can help you win in the end? Because if I'm paying Steve $1,000 an hour to represent me, I would want Steve to say to me, give me all the facts. And I lay out all the facts to Steve.
Right.
I would want Steve to say, mention this, don't mention that, mention this, say this, and let's win this case, because that's why I'm paying him the big bucks. So I think it was smart, strategic, and yes, that's why you hire a good legal team to do those things.
Right. Let's talk a little bit, if we can, about Simon's legal team, because it feels like the courtroom audio confirms that he was irate, had to be overruled in several. I don't know this because it's all happening so fast, but was he representing himself? Where were his attorneys in this matter?
Well, look, I don't know, but I can't imagine somebody of his stature would not have counsel. But that doesn't change the fact that when you have a client who's been through as much as he has and is now getting angry, and he's not sitting next to you, and you can't put your hand on his shoulder, and you can't, say, hey, to chill out, and let me take care of this. It's very hard to keep control of somebody, loud, boisterous, wealthy guy. So you can't do it. Having him participate remotely, if you don't have at least one lawyer with him, where he's filming from, that's a mistake.
Got it. And then it goes to show how emotional he is for being detained for nearly 5 months.
Yep.
He was in detainment under deplorable conditions.
Yep.
Finally free, finally at home. Everything that he fought for while he was here, including no filming in their marital house. All of his rights feel like they have vanished since he's been there. And I knew that her inability to film in that house, because he made it such a big deal of what he did not want to occur, the fact that now she can, and she can for over 2 years, countless seasons. How many seasons is that, Carlos? About 3 more?
Mm-hmm.
She's got enough room to put some great episodes there. We'll see how that plays out. Again, that even assumes that mortgage. Look, there's a lot of talk about, well, she gets this and she get that. It's pretty clear the house has a mortgage, and
right.
I mean, let's face it, Simon is kind of a high leverage guy, right? So you would imagine that he didn't just. They say the house is worth $7 million. Let's say they bought it for 5. I don't know, whatever the number is.
Right.
You would guess he didn't just plunk down $4,500,000 to buy the house, right? He's leveraged it out, just like a lot of folks. At Donald Trump, for example, President of the United States, he's a high leverage guy, right? He uses other people's money. If it doesn't work out, he declares bankruptcy. If it does make money, everybody, he makes money, right? So, you can see Simon not putting a letter down, which means that they don't own the house. Bank owns the house. Whoever holds the mortgage owns the house. So if nobody's paying that mortgage, I don't know that you're going to have until 2027 to do it.
Sorry, Steve, there were several comments on, even if she was awarded the house, how is she going to be able to maintain? She makes a substantial amount from Real Housewives. She clearly has other businesses and money, financial streams of income streams. But we're talking about a $7 million home and a hefty mortgage without her husband. What is everyone's thoughts on that? on that?
And look, and the likelihood that she's going to see any of that $40,000 a month anytime soon, it's probably remote. And remember, look, I don't say it's a lot of money, but what's the math? What is that? $600,000, something like that, over 15 months, right? So it's not life-changing money. It's good money to have. And who knows when, if ever, he's going to start paying. He's going to appeal, and then he's going to have to be dragged into the courtroom and to be forced to pay it. And you don't see that happening either.
I want to talk about that too, Courtney, because to Steve's point, and this was a big conversation that happened on social media, Courtney and Steve, when the world found out that Porsha's prenuptial agreement included the $40,000 a month alimony that was awarded by the judge. She gets to keep the Rolls Royce, keep the house. With that being said, Steve, Simon is in Nigeria. He got deported back to his homeland, if you will. Is by court of law, how far into the deferment can Simon do to defer payments? 2, there was questions on, because he's in Nigeria, does he still legally have to pay the money? And number 3, could he, like you mentioned with our president, could he file bankruptcy and Porsha never see the money?
Well, so lots of parts of that question. The first is he legally obligated? Well, if the judge's order is final, meaning he appeals and it doesn't get changed by an appellate court, then he's legally obligated to pay it. As of this moment, he's legally obligated to pay it until, again, they file a notice of appeal and let's just say the higher court grants a stay of the order. So he'll always be legally obligated to pay it unless something changes. But enforcement, which is something we talked about last time, is a different issue. That judge again, I don't mean to use the current president, but his favorite president, Andrew Jackson. If you folks know your history, you remember that Andrew Jackson was fond of saying of Chief Judge John Marshall at the time, the Chief Judge has made his decision, now let him enforce it, right? Meaning, judges rely on the other branches of government to enforce orders. So, Simon's probably saying, yeah, let him enforce it right now. Again, as I think we talked about this last time, unless he has assets in the United States that are subject to garnishment or seizure. And again, I don't know that, but no, he's where's that money coming from? Unless he decides to start writing her checks and making wire transfers, that $7 million house is not going to be around for very long. Again, unless she finds some other assets or she gets another investor, somebody's going to help her pay for it.
So if Simon wanted to, let's say he appeals and the judgment stands, he has to pay Porsha $40,000 a month. He has every right to file for bankruptcy, and she'll never see the money, correct?
Well, look, he can file for bankruptcy, but in order to be protected by the bankruptcy laws of the United States, you have to be in the United States. You can't be a foreign national living in a foreign country and claim protection from the bankruptcy laws of the United States.
So he can pretty much just say, oh, well, whatever is happening in the U.S. is happening. I can wash my hands of that because I'm not there.
He can walk away from it. Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, if you go back to how much is the equity in that house, we're all, we're theorizing, given the circumstances, that it's not going to be anywhere near 100% of the value of the house.
Right.
So, that means like $600,000 in alimony. The Rolls is gone because it's here. Let the house go. Let the bank take it back. Goodbye.
Cut the losses.
Yeah.
She can maintain it as best she can.
Correct. Yeah.
So it goes back into what you said last week. I want to go to law school. It goes back to what you said last week because it just hit me. Last week, Steve said, as a lawyer, I don't think it was in the best interest for Simon to be deported.
Correct.
And that if you were Porsha's lawyers, you would not want this man to be deported back to Nigeria. You would want him to face everything in the United States.
Exactly
If Simon was not deported, Steve, and the judgment is still the judgment of the $40,000 going to Porsha, and he lives in the United States, he then could not use the fact that he's from another country to not pay this money back, correct?
Yeah, because he's in the United States, which means the court has personal jurisdiction of him. We know they have subject matter jurisdiction because the matrimony was filed in the United States, and because he's present, they have subject matter jurisdiction. So, but now when it comes to enforcement actions, and not the same equation. Just like it's he couldn't claim the protection of the bankruptcy laws here because he's no longer a resident. The courts here do not have jurisdiction over him outside of the matrimonial. So when you're talking about satisfaction of judgments and enforcement proceedings, the judge can't issue that. But going back to your question about declaring bankruptcy, generally speaking, these type of court settlements are not subject to protection from bank. So in other words, even if he was here, you can't get out of child support payments, restitution, criminal fines, stuff like that. The bankruptcy laws don't permit you to escape certain categories of debts, and court orders are one of them. Now, of course, it might give him a little bit of leverage to enter a settlement with her for half the amount or something like that. But that's an entirely different issue.
So the legal leverage that we all suspected that she had by allegedly or potentially making sure he was deported, it's all gone.
It's gone.
paying the child support. You just really did that now out of the kindness of your heart.
Yeah.
Because he's not obligated. It sounds like what you're saying is he has no real legal obligation to abide by any laws within the United States if he is not in the United States.
Yeah, look, if he's physically present, and there was something about that was written on this where, one of the accusations that were made against him was that he wasn't complying with interim court orders, and interim court orders are common in matrimonial actions, and he wasn't even doing that. So if he's still present, the judge can say, hey, look, I'm giving you one more day or one more week to comply with my orders. Otherwise, you're going to be in the county jail for as long as I say you're going to be there. And that's what brings him and his checkbook to the table.
That's what brings him and his checkbook to the table.
Right now, there's no such fear. They've already done the worst thing they could to him. They locked him up for weeks.
For months.
You think if he was still in custody and he was said, hey, look, we're going to let you out of custody and we're going to adjust your status. I know this is unrealistic. If you promise to comply with the court officers, he would agree in a minute, right?
Right.
But too late for that. That kind of leverage is gone.
So that's what you were saying. It is in her team's best interest.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So let me flip a theory then to make him stay. Do you think, well, I don't think he would have set himself up to be deported. No. I personally don't think, especially going through what he went through, if he was emotional in ICE detention for 5 months, I don't think this would be a play for him or his team. But could it have been still strategically from her team? Yeah, it just went awry.
That, and I think you make an excellent point. Did somebody get a brilliant idea that turned out not to be that brilliant? Maybe. Yeah. I mean, that you often look back. Look, we do this all the time because lawyers are always making decisions with the information they have available at the moment. Right. And change, and then after a while, you scratch your head saying, "What was I thinking?" Right? How did I get up with that dumb idea? And so, I think there might be something said to that without realizing the can of worms it was opening. Right? I mean, this is back in February. If you're right, then this whole theory of setting him up, the germ of that idea was just around the time Trump took office and took over the government, right? So the play there, you would have thought about that differently. Even the folks who voted for Trump, and I did not, but even the folks who voted for him or thought his ideas on border control and illegal immigration and things like that, even those who were in favor of a lot of that stuff, never imagined what would be going on now, where otherwise law-abiding people and children, families are being broken up. Back then, even though, like people said about Trump, listen to what he says. He's really going to do this stuff, right? So back then, it was different. Back then, you might have thought, well, that's a good idea. We can really mess with the guy and maybe bring him to the table. You wouldn't do it now, though.
And I want to piggyback off of that too, Steve, before I let you go, because Simon did an interview with Us Weekly, a tabloid, and they did ask him about President Trump, border control, and ICE. And Simon said, and I quote, excuse me, Donnie, like I refer to him, we are very, that's what he said. So Simon refers to President Trump as Donnie. He goes, Donnie, like I refer to him, we are very similar. I certainly can't understand it. Sometimes I would say that we are misunderstood. I don't have any animosity towards the situation. I don't have any problems with Donald Trump. Like any other CEO or chief executive who I am, we look to hire the best people, blah, 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 blah. He did say that he has no plans to fight to get back into America, but if the opportunity came about, he would come.
Yeah, Well, of course, he's as we discussed in episode 1. I think probably I should be calling it the award-winning episode 1 of your first episode.
Debut.
The debut episode. But yeah, I think he's, as I said, we said then, he's probably got the feelers out. Because again, I'm sure he would like to come back to the U.S., even the circumstances that are going on now. I mean, most folks still want to be in the United States, and it's better than most other places in the world. But it's going down the list, I should say. But yeah, I'm sure he's putting feelers out there and seeing if he could essentially buy his way back in. It's probably the only chance he's got.
Right.
Fascinating.
Listen, the consistency of Simon's net worth has not changed throughout the years. So he is a successful Nigerian businessman. That was the allure to even the marriages. So he's coming with his real receipts on his wealth. And like we said at the top of this, if it was strategic, it didn't necessarily pan out or play.
It didn't work. It did not work.
And Steve, I want to ask you this, my last question for you.
Yeah. The
world has said Porsha has won. As an attorney, and obviously you have no bias with anybody, you don't watch the show, this is strictly legal. Based on all of the information Courtney and I learned today from you, who really won in this case between Porsha and Simon when it's all said and done?
Well, I mean, it's like, who won the trade between Minnesota and the Knicks, who got KHT? The question really is, who won for now? Plainly, you want to get the first decision your way. But the real question is, what has she won so far? Okay, she won the first ruling. It's the first step in a lot of ones to come. So, I don't think you can really gauge who won the trade yet. Maybe a year from now you'll be able to, or maybe a few months from now you will. But for the moment, no question, big win to get that kind of win from a court.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much. Courtney and I appreciate you for coming on to our second episode. Tell your daughter we said hi, and we'll see you again for another one.
All right, folks. Take care. Good luck.
Thank you. Oh, my gosh.
Oh my God.
I'm gagging, Courtney. No, Courtney, I'm gagging.
Literally. To know that, listen, he said she was rewarded this first round. And in hindsight now, it feels very much so like, but was it a win? So I'm glad that you asked that question, because you now are allowed to live in the house, your marital house. You're allowed to film there. You got the Rolls Royce, which is, out of all of it, the biggest, to me, tangible expression of an actual win. If you value that much, because it's like Steve said, it's here in the United States. You have possession of it. You can keep the possession of it. Simon is not coming back to get his car. He's just not.
Right.
But this house now, even if you won it in this first round, are you going to want to maintain it? Are you going to sell it? Like, I'm sure the mortgage is what you're presumably getting in this alimony that you may never even see. So what are you winning? And, have you just now taken on more than you bargained for? More responsibilities, more headaches. Like, she must be thinking, I just want this marriage now to just be over.
Yeah.
Clean slate. If I were her, I would just want it to be a clean slate. Let me move on with my life. Because you clearly have moved on with yours, living your best life in Nigeria.
Okay. And that's the thing. So I agree with you, actually. I wouldn't want the house, because to me, it's the memories.
You're right.
I would be constantly reminded of him and our situation. The call, I agree with you. I would want nothing out of that. I would just want the divorce to be final and let me move on with my life. I actually agree with you. Listen, I'll take the $40,000 a month as long as I can get it.
He's
I'll
not
take
going
that.
to pay it. He doesn't have to. Like, we were talking about the charges for his arrest and detainment. Once we learned last week that once they got him and they got him out, all of that stuff becomes null and void. They're not trying to pursue criminal they're not trying to keep him here to fight that and detain him. They want him gone. They had enough charges to arrest him and detain him, but once you're deported, it's over. It's like, we're not trying to make good on any of those 3 counts of detainment. The same is going to be said with this this alimony and his legal obligations in the United States. It's baffling to know that he doesn't have to abide by any of the laws of our land. He's not in our land. He can be like, oh, well, the house can go, that car, you can have it, and I'm not paying. Good luck getting this $40K a month out of me. I don't have to pay it.
I think that's the whole gag of the situation, which is why, to Steve's point, the legal expert we have, this is the first of many steps that could take months or a couple of years as well. And I think the biggest shock of this episode is the fact that in a perfect world, right, it would have been best for Simon to be in the US. That's the gag of the episode.
The gag of the episode is, as he said, it's not the strategy. If this was a strategy, it was a failed one. Now, if he didn't pay if he defaulted on his child support, what do you think he's about to do with these alimony payments? He doesn't have to. And if I were her, I would just want an expeditious divorce and wash my hands of all of it so I can move on with my life here in the United States.
And the one thing that it just hit me too, I'm assuming all of his children will be living in the US with their mothers.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
Right. So hopefully they haven't pissed him off. Because good luck getting him to do. Now, again, you've met and you know Simon, you've interacted with him.
I met him one time at the wedding and we spoke for 2 minutes, Courtney.
I'm trying to make y'all friends because we need somebody to speak to the integrity of this man. I can't do that. You can't do that. No. And in accordance to, and again, we're assuming he defaulted because he was, we know that the only reason he defaulted on his child support payments was because he was detained. Yeah. So she paid that, but it's that leverage of, you can't do anything when you're detained. Like you said, he spent 23 hours of a 24-hour day in probably confinement. So I just hope that for the kids that are involved, he's a man of integrity and will just honor his obligations to his family. Yeah. And with respect to her, and hopefully she gets wind of this part 2 episode, it might be in her best interest to just cut her losses, have that house sold while there's still value, and it's not in a default situation, and just move on. Move on, because this is constantly, if we have to do a part 3, because it's just so salacious and juicy and good. And Simon is just, on Instagram doing lives, living his, literally. I just looked at a post from him yesterday. He is fine and fly over in Nigeria. He might miss certain things and aspects in America, but he's doing just fine in his country. As an executive producer to this movie, I'm going to find out.
And that's how you wrap this up. Courtney Parker, thank you again. Now that is Courtney, one of my episodes, you and I are going to sit and recap the movie that Simon executive produced alongside Spike Lee Child. That'll be our next episode.
You know, I'm
Well, Courtney, thanks for another great episode. I will see you next week as we recap another reality crime story. So, Raindrops, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to tell a friend, phone a friend, like and share this episode. We're loving this. Thank you guys so much for the outpour of positive comments that Courtney reads. And we will see you guys next week.